The royal arena had filled before dawn, so every pack in the kingdom could watch Lysara Noct fail to become a wolf. They brought her out barefoot over frost-white sand, with an iron collar around her throat and a strip of black mourning cloth tied over her left wrist. Mourning cloth belonged to the dead. That was the first cruelty. The second was that High Priestess Severin Caedran had tied it herself, knotting the fabric tight enough to bruise, as if Lysara's pulse needed to be hidden from the moon before judgment began. Above her, the crown arena rose in moonstone tiers, crowded with wolves from every sworn pack. Noble alphas sat beneath black awnings trimmed in silver. Luna candidates glittered like knives in pale gowns. Young wolves leaned forward with hungry faces, eager to witness the public ending of a girl who had reached 20 summers without one shift, one howl, or one flicker of a beast behind her eyes. A wolfless Omega was unfortunate. A wolfless Omega who survived this long was an insult. Lysara kept her gaze on the sand, not because she was meek, because if she looked at the crowd, she might start counting the faces that had once smiled at her in private and laughed at her in public. "Stand straight," the guard beside her muttered. She did. Her spine was thin beneath the faded gray shift they had given her, but it did not bend. That was all she had left. No house worth defending. No wolf to answer insult. No scent strong enough for any pack to claim without shame. Only the stubborn refusal to let them see how badly her knees wanted to shake. At the center of the arena stood the moon gate. It was not a gate in any ordinary sense. It had no door, no hinges, no path beyond it. It was a ring of black stone twice the height of a man, carved with claw runes and set upright in the sand. Every true wolf, the priests claimed, cast a shadow through it on the day of first shift. Lysara had been brought here because hers never had. A horn sounded. The arena quieted. High Priestess Severine descended from the eastern dais, wrapped in white temple robes that moved like smoke over bone. Her silver hair was braided with tiny black bells that did not ring when she walked. No sound followed Severine unless she allowed it. She stopped before Lysara, with a smile too gentle to be mercy. "Lysara Noct," she said, her voice carrying to every tier. "Daughter of no recognized line, Omega of no shift. By petition of the gathered packs, you stand before the moon gate to answer one final question." Lysara already knew the question. The whole kingdom did. Are you hiding a wolf, or are you empty? Severine lifted Lysara's left wrist, displaying the black cloth to the arena. By temple law, this mark names her dead to the winter records, if the gate finds no beast. The crowd murmured with approval. Dead to records. Not dead enough to bury. Just dead enough that no law would protect her. "If the gate finds a wolf," Severin continued, "she will shift and live under pack law. If it finds none, her name will be cut, and her body will serve the arena kennels until death." The kennels were where broken fighters and half-starved beasts were kept before blood games. No one lasted long there, but kingdoms loved clean words for ugly endings. Lysara's mouth had gone dry, but she made herself speak. "My name was never in the winter records." A few wolves laughed. Severine's smile did not change. "Then nothing will be lost." The northern gates opened. The laughter died. Alpha King Caedran Vhal entered the arena without crown or banner. He needed neither. He came in black battle armor, dark hair loose around a face carved by command and exhaustion. A pale scar crossed the bridge of his nose. His eyes were a cold, violent gold that made lesser wolves lower their heads before memory told them why. A cloak of midnight fur dragged behind him, though no wind touched it. The kingdom called him the wolf who would not kneel. In whispers, they called him something else. The king whose beast would not come. Lysara had heard the rumors while scrubbing blood from the lower training stones. Caedran Vhal had not shifted in 3 years. Some said his wolf had grown too monstrous to show. Some said he had devoured it in battle. Some said the moon had turned its face from him, No one said it loudly twice. He stopped beneath the royal arch. Every wolf in the arena lowered their eyes. Except Lysara. She meant to. Truly, she did. But the moment Caedran stepped into the Moongate's shadow, something inside her ribs opened like a wound remembering a blade. Pain flashed through her chest. She staggered. The guard caught her arm roughly. Stand. Caedran's head turned. Across the frost-white sand, his gold eyes found her. Lysara felt his gaze, like a hand, closing around a secret she did not know she carried. Then his expression hardened, as if he hated what he had noticed. Severine stepped between them. Your Majesty honors the trial. I was told the packs gathered for tribute, Caedran said. His voice was low, rough-edged, and made for battlefields rather than ceremony. A smaller matter required cleansing first. The king looked at the iron collar around Lysara's throat, then at the Moongate, and something in his face turned colder than law. Cleansing, he repeated. The word did not sound safe in his mouth. Severine's bells remained silent. The girl cannot shift. She has failed every moon, call, every blood test, every winter scenting. The packs demand proof that weakness is not being hidden under palace mercy. I did not grant mercy. No, Majesty. The temple did. Something passed between them then. Severine's calm certainty, Caedran's controlled dislike, and beneath both, an old struggle neither wanted the arena to smell. The priestess turned back to Lysara. Kneel before the gate. Lysara knelt. The sand was bitter cold. An acolyte cut a shallow line across her palm and pressed her bleeding hand to the black stone ring. The Moongate drank the blood at once. Nothing happened. A soft laugh rose from the western tears, then another, then many. Lysara kept her palm against the stone. She had known this would happen. Her blood never answered. Her bones never broke into another shape. Her throat never held a howl. Since childhood, younger wolves had shifted in terror and triumph, while she stood unchanged, pretending not to hear the word hollow passed from mouth to mouth. Severine raised her voice. The gate finds no wolf. The crowd roared. The mourning cloth around Lysara's wrist tightened by itself. A cold numbness spread from the knot into her veins. She gasped. Caedran saw it. His eyes narrowed. Test me, he said. The arena fell silent. Severine turned slowly. Majesty, you heard me. My king, the royal shift is not required. It is when the temple makes failure a spectacle. Caedran removed his cloak. It fell behind him into the sand, like a slain animal. If the Moongate judges wolves today, let it judge mine. The crowd did not cheer. Fear had entered them too quickly. Lysara stared at him. She did not understand why he had done it. Not for her. Men like Caedran Vhal did not risk kingdoms for nameless omegas, but he had looked at the collar on her throat and the black cloth on her wrist as if something old and poisonous had finally shown its teeth. Severine's hand tightened around her prayer chain. This is unwise. Caedran cut his palm with the same silver knife and pressed his blood beside Lysara's on the stone. The gate turned black. Not dark. Black. Like moonlight had been swallowed. Every wolf in the arena rose. Caedran's jaw clenched. Shadows gathered behind him, twisting, straining, trying to become the royal wolf the kingdom waited to see. For one breath, a vast shape appeared. Shoulders like storm clouds. Eyes like burning gold. Then the shape convulsed. Chains of silver-black fire flashed around its throat. Caedran dropped to one knee. A gasp tore through the arena. Lysara moved before thought could stop her. She reached for him, though she wore the collar, though he was king, though every law said an Omega did not touch an Alpha without command. Her bloody palm brushed his. The mourning cloth on her left wrist burst into silver ash. The Moongate screamed. Silver-black fire exploded from the stone, not around Caedran. Around her, Lysara's back arched. A howl ripped through her chest, in a voice too deep to belong to her body. Her shadow stretched across the sand, widening, darkening, growing claws. Behind her, Alpha King Caedran Vhal bowed under the force of it, one hand braced in the frost-white sand, and from Lysara Noct's body, through her trembling spine and burning throat, the king's true wolf began to shift. The howl tore upward and dragged the whole arena into silence. Lysara could feel it moving through her bones, too large for her narrow chest, too ancient for her human throat. It was not her wolf. She knew that with a certainty deeper than fear. Whatever rose inside her carried a crown's weight, a battlefield's rage, and a grief so old it tasted like iron under her tongue. Silver-black fire crawled over her arms. The frost-white sand beneath her knees darkened in the shape of claw marks. Behind her, Caedran Vhal remained on one knee, his bloody palm still pressed to the moongate. His head was bowed, but not in surrender. His body shook, as if something had been torn out of a locked room inside him and forced through another door. Through her, the crowd did not laugh now. The same wolves who had come to see an empty Omega fail stood frozen in the tears, their faces pale, their mouths parted around prayers. They were too frightened to speak. Several alphas had risen from their seats. One young wolf near the lower rail shifted halfway by accident, claws bursting through his fingers before he bit back a cry. High Priestess Severin moved first. Break contact. No one obeyed. The acolyte nearest Lysara stared at the burning remains of the mourning cloth on her wrist. The black fabric had not fallen away. It had turned to silver ash and clung to her skin in a ring of tiny glowing runes. Severin saw them. For the first time, her bell-braided hair made the faintest sound. Not a chime. A warning. I said, break. Contact. A temple guard rushed forward and grabbed Lysara by the shoulder. The fire around her body snapped outward. The man flew backward across the sand and struck the arena wall hard enough to crack moonstone. Lysara gasped, horrified, but the power did not feel like anger. It felt like defense. Like a beast inside her had recognized a hand reaching for a wound. Caedran lifted his head. His gold eyes were no longer cold. They burned with something raw. Do not touch her. The words rolled across the arena, rough and low, but every wolf heard them. Severin turned toward him slowly. Majesty, the girl is channeling your beast. That is not protection. That is theft. Caedran's jaw tightened. My wolf moved toward her before she touched me, because she opened herself as a vessel. I saw chains on its throat. The arena held its breath. Severin's face remained calm, but Lysara was close enough to see the small tightening around her mouth. There are many shapes a curse can wear, the priestess said. Some choose pity first. Lysara wanted to speak, but the wolf inside her moved again. Not fully. Not into flesh. Its shape pressed against her shadow, stretching across the sand in a vast outline. Shoulders like night, ears sharp as blades, eyes burning gold through silver-black flame. The beast's head turned toward Caedran. Pain struck him. He bowed forward, one hand digging into the sand. Lysara felt the pain echo through her own ribs. She nearly collapsed with it. For one impossible heartbeat, she was not only herself. She was behind stone, behind prayer, behind a circle of white-robed figures chanting beneath a dead moon. She felt a muzzle forced shut by cold fire. She felt royal blood calling and unable to answer. Then the vision broke. She was back in the arena, shaking, her human hands pressed to the sand. Caedran was staring at her, not like a king watching an Omega, like a starving man watching a door open. What did you see? He asked. Severin stepped forward. Do not answer him. Lysara looked at the priestess. All her life, Severin's temple had named her hollow. The temple had tested her blood, marked her failures, tied mourning cloth to her wrist, and called it law. Yet the moment that cloth burned, Fear had entered the priestess's eyes. That fear gave Lysara one thin thread of courage. "I saw your wolf," she said to Caedran. A low sound moved through the crowd. Caedran did not blink. "Where?" Lysara swallowed. "Behind stone." Its mouth was chained. The moon gate shuddered. Severine's white robes snapped in a wind no one else felt. "Enough. The trial is corrupted. By temple authority, the Omega is to be removed and sealed until purification." A circle of guards advanced. Caedran rose. Slowly. The movement cost him. Lysara saw it in the tightness of his mouth, in the way his fingers flexed as if resisting claws that would not come. His true wolf still burned through her shadow, but his body remained painfully human. That was the curse. The king could command armies, break rebellions, and make proud alphas kneel, but he could not reach the beast that belonged to his own blood. "Stand down," he said. The guards stopped. Severine's eyes sharpened. "You would defend the girl after she wore your wolf before the entire kingdom?" Caedran glanced once at Lysara's collar. His gaze darkened. "I am defending my right to know why the temple marked her dead before the gate touched her blood." The words struck the arena harder than a shout. Lysara looked down at her left wrist. The silver ash runes pulsed where the mourning cloth had burned away. She had thought the cloth was only humiliation. Now she saw the truth in the shape of the marks. They had not announced a death. They had enforced one. The moon gate had not failed to read her. It had been ordered not to. Severine lifted her prayer chain. "The king's grief makes him reckless." "No," Caedran said. "Your silence does." The priestess smiled then, but it was empty of grace. She pressed her thumb to the black moonstone pendant at her throat. The moon gate screamed again. A second ring of runes flared beneath Lysara's knees, locking around her like a cage. The wolf shadow inside her snarled, but when it lunged, pain slammed through her spine. Lysara cried out and fell forward. Caedran surged toward her. The runes flashed. He was thrown back before he could cross the circle. He hit the sand on one knee, breathing hard. Fury carved across his face. Severine raised her voice to the watching packs. "Behold the danger. The girl is not wolfless. She is worse. She is a forbidden passage for beasts that should remain sealed." A murmur of fear rippled through the arena. Lysara pressed one trembling hand against the burning sand and forced herself to lift her head. The wolf inside her did not speak in words, but she felt its command, deep and wounded. "Do not close." At the center of the moon gate, the black stone split with a sound like bone cracking, and from inside the fracture, something wearing Caedran's voice whispered her name. The sand around Lysara turned black before any wolf dared breathe, not the soft black of shadow. This was a burned, glassy darkness spreading outward from her knees, swallowing the frost-white arena grain by grain. The runic cage beneath her flared brighter, silver ash on her left wrist, answering each symbol as if the mourning cloth had not been destroyed, only awakened into something more honest. Inside the split moon gate, Caedran's voice came again. "Lysara," but the king stood several paces away, one hand pressed into the sand, his mouth closed, his gold eyes fixed on the fracture, with the expression of a man hearing his own soul speak from a tomb. The arena understood it at the same time. That was not the king. It was what had been taken from him. A shudder moved through the tiers. Wolves who had mocked Lysara now drew back from the rails. Several lowered their heads without meaning to. Others looked toward High Priestess Severine, desperate for her to make the impossible lawful again. Severine lifted both hands. The black bells in her silver braids began to ring at last, tiny and cold, each note striking the air like a nail. "Do not listen to the thing in the stone," she commanded. Royal curses mimic beloved voices. Caedran rose slowly. "My wolf is not a thing." The priestess turned, her pale eyes sharpening. "Your wolf has not answered you in 3 years." The blow landed where she meant it to. Lysara saw it in the king's face, not his weakness, but his pain locked so deeply that even pride could not cover it. For one breath, the feared Alpha King looked less like a ruler and more like a man who had spent too many nights calling into darkness and receiving no answer. The voice inside the gate growled. The sound vibrated through Lysara's spine. Pain flashed behind her eyes, and another vision broke open. A moonlit chamber beneath the temple. Caedran younger, bleeding from a battle wound. His wolf half emerged in a storm of gold and black fur. White-robed priestesses circled him. Severine stood at their center, with one hand over his heart and the other over a black stone mirror. Chains of silver fire shot from the mirror and wrapped around the wolf's throat. Not to heal, to divide. Lysara gasped. The vision vanished. Severine noticed. Of course she did. Her mind is opening, the priestess said. Seal it before she invites the beast fully through. Temple guards advanced again, this time carrying moon salt spears. The silver heads glowed with a pale light that made Lysara's teeth ache. She tried to move, but the rune circle held her knees to the sand. The shadow of Caedran's true wolf pressed inside her body, furious and trapped, too large for her bones. She could feel it wanting to emerge. She could also feel what would happen if it did. Her body would break. Caedran saw the first spear lift. His voice cut across the arena. Touch her, and I will bury this temple under its own stones. Severine's smile was thin. With what wolf, Majesty? Silence struck hard. Then the first guard thrust his spear toward Lysara's shoulder. Caedran moved. Not shifted. Not fully. Something worse. Something human and brutal and fast enough that the crowd only saw black armor cross the sand before the spear snapped in two. The guard hit the ground. Caedran stood over him, breathing hard, one broken spear half in his hand. The moon gate punished him for crossing nearer. Silver-black chains flared from the stone and lashed across his chest. He staggered, but did not retreat. Blood darkened the edge of his armor where the chain had burned through. Lysara's heart twisted. Stop, she whispered. He looked at her. The word had been meant for the gate, for the priestess, for the curse, for all of it. But he answered, as if it had been meant for him. No. One word. Raw, unadorned, dangerous. Not gentle enough to comfort. Not soft enough to be pity. And somehow that steadied her more than tenderness would have. Severine's bells rang faster. The girl is binding him. Can you not see? This is what gate blood does. It steals the loyalty of stronger wolves and calls it rescue. Gate blood. The word passed through the arena like a blade drawn from a forbidden sheath. Lysara did not understand it, but the silver ash on her wrist burned in answer. The runes rearranged, each mark turning slowly until the ring around her pulse no longer looked like a funeral band. It looked like a keyhole. Caedran saw it. So did Severine. The priestess's face hardened, cut off her left hand. The command dropped cleanly into the arena. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Even the guards hesitated. Lysara stared at Severine, and fear went through her so cold it emptied every thought. Her left hand, the hand marked dead to records, the hand that had touched the king's blood, the hand now carrying whatever secret the mourning cloth had tried to smother. Caedran snarled. It was not a human sound. The fractured moongate answered with a deeper one. Inside Lysara, the trapped wolf surged. Her bones screamed. The first guard lifted a curved temple blade and stepped into the rune circle. Lysara should have collapsed. Instead, she remembered the vision. Severine's hand over Caedran's heart, silver chains around the wolf's throat, the black mirror drinking what did not belong to it. The king had not lost his beast. Someone had locked it away, and her body, empty all these years, had not been empty. It had been guarding the door. Lysara lifted her left hand before the blade could fall. The silver ash on her wrist burst into flame. Not hot, cold as moonlight, dark as midnight water. The rune cage shattered. The force threw the guard backward, but Lysara barely saw him fall. Her attention was on the moon gate, on the fracture widening through the black stone, on the gold eyes burning from inside it. Caedran reached for her. "Lysara, do not open it." She looked at him through the silver-black fire crawling over her skin. "Is it yours?" His face went still. The voice inside the gate answered before he could. "No," it growled. "I am him." The entire arena trembled. Lysara's shadow rose behind her, no longer shaped like an Omega girl, no longer fully shaped like the king's wolf either. It became an arch of living darkness edged in silver flame. A passage, a forbidden door made of bone, breath, and blood. Severine stepped back for the Lysara looked down at her burning wrist as the last morning rune broke apart. Beneath it, branded into her skin in black silver light, a crescent gate opened around a wolf's eye, and every wolf in the arena heard the moon gate whisper the name of what she was. Wolf Gate. The arena did not erupt. It recoiled. 12,000 wolves drew back from the railings, as if the frost-white sand below had become a mouth. The word the moon gate had whispered still hung in the air, not repeated, not understood by most, but feared by instinct. Some old alphas touched the scars at their throats. Several priestesses on the eastern dais went pale beneath their moon paint. One elderly pack matriarch sank to her knees without command and began whispering an old prayer with shaking lips. Lysara stood inside the shattered rune circle, breathing as if the sky had turned too heavy for her lungs. Silver-black fire crawled over her skin in thin branching lines. It did not burn her shift or her flesh, but it made every vein beneath her skin feel open. Her left wrist glowed where the mourning cloth had been, the crescent gate mark widening and closing like an eye trying to wake. Caedran moved toward her. The mark flared. He stopped at once, not because Severine commanded it, not because the guards blocked him, because Lysara's body had become a threshold, and something inside that threshold warned him to come no closer unless he was ready to lose what little control remained. His gold eyes fixed on her face. "Can you breathe?" The question was absurd in the middle of a royal arena, beneath 12,000 watching wolves in a cracked moon gate, but it reached Lysara more deeply than any command could have. She nodded once. It was a lie. Caedran knew it. Severin lifted her prayer chain, its black moonstone pendant pulsing against her palm. "Do not speak to her as if she is a girl. A passage does not suffer. It opens. It consumes. It lets forbidden things through." Lysara's fingers curled. A passage. Not a person. Not even an Omega now. Only a door to be sealed or used. She had spent her life being called empty. Somehow, this was worse. Caedran's voice lowered. "You knew what she was." Severine looked at him with perfect stillness. "I knew what her bloodline could become, if allowed to mature." Allowed? The Noct line was forbidden for a reason. A murmur ran through the arena. Lysara's name moved from mouth to mouth, changed by fear. Noct no longer sounded like a poor Omega's unwanted surname. It sounded like something buried beneath temple floors. Caedran took one step toward the priestess. "What reason?" Severine's bells rang once. The sound made the fracture in the moon gate pulse. "Because wolf gates do not shift," she said. "They open. Their bodies call trapped beasts through blood, through bond, through weakness in the world. They can free wolves from curses. They can also release monsters sealed for the safety of kingdoms." Lysara felt the king's true wolf press against her ribs. Not a monster. Wounded. Furious. Alive. The difference mattered so much it hurt. Caedran's jaw tightened. "You tied mourning cloth to her wrist before the trial, to keep the gate from reading unstable blood, to make the gate call her dead." Severine's smile thinned. "To protect the arena from what is happening now." "No," he said. "To keep her from opening what you locked." The priestess's calm faltered, only for a heartbeat. Enough. The true wolf inside Lysara surged toward that crack in her composure. Pain tore through Lysara's spine. She cried out and dropped to one knee. Her shadow rose higher behind her, forming the outline of a massive wolf's head above her human body, jaws open, silver-black flame dripping like night from its teeth. Caedran Vhal. The moon gate punished him. A chain of black light lashed from the fracture and struck his chest. He staggered but stayed upright. One hand pressed against the burn mark cutting across his armor. Blood darkened beneath the metal. Lysara forced words through clenched teeth. Don't. He looked at her, breathing hard. Do not ask me to stand still while it breaks you. It is not breaking me. Another pulse of pain struck. She nearly fell forward. Caedran's expression turned lethal. Lysara drew a shaking breath. It is trying not to. That stopped him. The words reached something deeper than fear. His gaze shifted from the fire on her skin to the wolf shadow rising behind her. For the first time, the Alpha King looked at the beast not as a lost weapon, not as proof of his ruin, but as a living part of himself trapped inside a girl who had never been allowed to belong to her own body. Severin saw that understanding take root. Bring the mirror, she said. The temple acolytes froze. Her voice sharpened. Now, from beneath the eastern dais, 4 priestesses dragged a black stone mirror veiled in white cloth. It was taller than a man, framed in silver bones, its surface hidden but still wrong. The air around it bent inward. Wolves in the lower tiers whimpered when it passed. Lysara knew it before the cloth was removed. She had seen it in the vision. The mirror that chained Caedran's wolf. The true wolf inside her snarled so violently that blood filled her mouth. Caedran turned on Severin. That relic was destroyed after the Blood Moon War. Many things are declared destroyed when kings are too young to question ashes. The priestesses set the mirror at the edge of the sand. Severin gripped the white cloth. If the gate remains open, the royal wolf may tear through her and leave both bodies dead. The mirror can draw it back. Caedran's eyes went cold. Back into the prison you made. Back where it can be controlled. There it was. Not healed. Controlled. Lysara pushed herself upright. Her knees shook. Her throat burned. The crowd blurred around the edges of her vision, but the mirror stayed sharp. A black wound behind white cloth. Severin pulled the veil away. The mirror's surface reflected no sky, no arena, no crowd. Only Caedran's true wolf, chained in darkness, staring out through gold eyes filled with rage. Every wolf in the Crown Arena heard the beast speak. She is not the cage, it growled. The mirror cracked from top to base. She is the only door. The mirror split like black ice beneath thunder. A crack ran down its center, bright with silver-black fire, and every wolf in the arena felt the wound open. The chained beast inside did not push through. It waited behind the broken surface with burning gold eyes fixed on Lysara, as if one wrong breath from her would decide whether it became salvation or disaster. Lysara could not stop shaking. The mark on her left wrist widened until it was no longer only a crescent gate around a wolf's eye. Thin lines branched from it over her hand, down into her palm, across the veins Severin had tried to silence with mourning cloth. Her body felt less like flesh now, and more like a threshold being forced to remember its shape. High Priestess Severin lowered the torn veil from the mirror. Her calm had returned, but it no longer looked holy. It looked prepared. You hear it speak, and think it proves innocence, she said to the arena. That is why wolf gates were forbidden. They do not only open doors, they make beasts sound beloved while they enter. The chained wolf struck the inside of the mirror. The crack widened. Caedran moved between the mirror and Lysara, his wounded chest rising hard beneath torn armor. You will not call my wolf a deceiver to hide your own chains. Severin's bells chimed once. Your wolf has lived in temple custody because 3 years ago it nearly tore through your body and slaughtered half your guard. A murmur swept the tiers. Caedran went still, not surprised. remembering. Lysara saw it cross his face, blood on white marble, hands holding him down. Severin's voice promising salvation, a beast inside him raging against pain. Whatever had happened 3 years ago, he had never been allowed to understand it without temple hands shaping the memory. The priestess turned the packs. I contained what would have devoured him. I preserved your king. You imprisoned what you feared, Lysara said. Her own voice startled her. Severine looked at her slowly. The arena seemed to lean closer. Lysara wanted to shrink. The habit rose inside her like an old bruise. An Omega did not accuse a priestess. A wolfless girl did not speak before Alphas. A condemned body did not name the knife. But the king's wolf was watching her from the broken mirror. And for the first time in her life, something powerful seemed to need her courage more than her obedience. Lysara forced herself to stand fully. If you saved him, why did you tie mourning cloth to me before the trial? Why mark my blood dead before the gate read it? Severine's eyes cooled. Because your blood was never meant to be read. Because it could open him. Because it could open anything. That answer silenced even the upper tiers. Severin lifted her prayer chain again. There are older things under this kingdom than royal wolves, hunger, beasts, war, wraiths, moonless packs buried beneath temple stone. A wolf gate does not decide what crosses, it only opens. The mark on Lysara's wrist pulsed. For one breath, the arena vanished at the edges, and she saw doors, not wooden doors, not gates of stone, living thresholds suspended in darkness, each one sealed by black moon script. Behind some, wolves howled. Behind others, something scraped claws against silence. Countless prisons beneath the world, each waiting for the wrong hand to become a key. Lysara staggered. Caedran caught her elbow before she fell. The touch was brief, careful, but the moment his skin met hers, the mirror flared. The chained wolf inside surged toward the crack with such longing that Lysara's chest nearly split from it. Caedran released her at once. His face had gone pale beneath the arena dust. Severine saw everything. There. You see the danger. His beast will use her body to escape. It will burn through her spine, hollow her bones, and wear what remains as a gate until something worse follows. Lysara's stomach turned. Caedran looked at the mirror, then at her. For the first time, fear entered his eyes. Not fear of her, fear for her. That hurt more than the priestess's threat. He stepped back. Only one pace. But Lysara felt it like cold water closing over her head. Severine's voice softened. Command her sealed, Majesty. Before pity makes you cruel. The crowd waited. Every pack waited. The temple waited. Lysara waited too, though she hated herself for it. She had no right to expect anything from a king who had known her less than an hour. Still, her chest tightened around the foolish hope that he would not let them bury her under holy words. Caedran's jaw worked once. Then he said, no. The word did not roar. It landed. Severine's expression sharpened. Your Majesty, I will not condemn her, because you are afraid of what your prison cannot hold. You risk every wolf here. I risk them more by trusting the woman who made a corpse mark look like law. The arena shook with the force of the pack's reaction. Lysara could barely breathe. Severine's gaze turned flat. Then you leave me no choice. She cut her own palm on the edge of the prayer chain and pressed her blood to the mirror's frame. The silver bones around it ignited. Temple guards dropped to one knee around the arena, chanting in a language too old for comfort. Black runes surfaced beneath the sand, not around Lysara this time, but around the entire moon gate. A second gate appeared within the first, thin and pale, like a noose made of light. Caedran drew his sword. Severine! The priestess ignored him. The mirror's crack widened, but the force no longer pulled Caedran's wolf toward freedom. It pulled Lysara toward the mirror. Her feet slid through the sand. She cried out and clawed for balance, But the gate mark on her wrist blazed open, answering the relic against her will. The chained wolf snarled from the glass, fighting the pull, trying not to drag her closer even as its prison used her blood as a handle. Caedran seized her waist from behind. The arena gasped. His arms locked around her, anchoring her against his body as the mirror tried to tear her forward. Heat poured from him, fierce and human, but beneath it, she felt the empty place where his wolf should have been. A king holding a door shut with nothing but will. Lysara's back pressed against his armor. His voice was harsh beside her ear. "Do not open." "I'm trying." "Try harder." A broken laugh almost escaped her, wild with terror. "You command beautifully, Majesty." His grip tightened for one heartbeat. Not anger. Something like life. Then the mirror screamed. The surface shattered inward, revealing a corridor of black moonlight stretching far beyond the arena. At the end of it stood Caedran's true wolf, chained to a stone altar. But behind the wolf, another pair of eyes opened. Not gold, white. Severine's chant faltered. Lysara felt Caedran go still behind her. The thing in the distant dark smiled with too many teeth, and every sealed door beneath the kingdom began to knock. A deep sound rolled beneath the crown arena, too vast to be thunder and too deliberate to be stone settling. The tiers shook. Dust fell from the moonstone arches. Wolves clutched the railings as old runes lit beneath their feet, spreading in pale lines from the broken mirror to the arena walls. The air filled with the scent of wet fur, cold iron, and graves opened under winter. Lysara remained pinned between Caedran's arms and the pull of the mirror. His grip was the only thing keeping her body from being dragged into that corridor of black moonlight. Yet every heartbeat of contact made the gate mark on her wrist burn wider. Her blood recognized him. Worse, it recognized what was trapped beyond him. The wide-eyed thing at the end of the corridor did not move closer. It did not need to. Its smile widened, and the knocking under the kingdom answered like hundreds of fists behind buried doors. Severine's chant faltered. For the first time, the high priestess looked afraid of her own ritual. Caedran saw it. "What is behind my wolf?" Severine's mouth tightened. "Answer me." The priestess lifted her chin, but her voice had lost its silk. "The reason your beast was sealed." The arena erupted in shouts. Lysara felt Caedran go still behind her, not with shock, but with the terrible quiet of a man realizing the lie was larger than the wound. "You used my wolf as a lock," he said, "to hold what your father failed to kill. My father died in the Blood Moon War. He died closing the first breach." Severine's eyes flashed toward Lysara, and her bloodline opened it. The accusation struck the arena exactly where Severine aimed it. Fear turned. Again, toward Lysara. She felt it move across the tiers like cold water. The wolfless girl had become a forbidden gate. The humiliated Omega had become the reason ancient horrors might wake. No one cared that she had not chosen any of it. Power never needed truth when terror would kneel faster. Caedran's arms tightened, not enough to hurt, enough to remind her she had not been thrown back to them. "Do not listen," he said near her ear. Lysara's laugh broke in her throat. "To which part?" His answer came rough. "The part that makes you carry their sin alone." For one breath, the mirror's pull weakened. Not because the ritual failed, because Lysara believed him. The gate mark on her wrist shifted. The crescent opened, then narrowed, as if something inside her had learned the difference between being forced open and choosing to stand shut. The chained wolf in the corridor lifted its head, its gold eyes fixed on her, not asking for freedom now, waiting. That nearly undid her. All her life, people had demanded proof from her. Shift, kneel, bleed, fail properly, make your emptiness useful. But the king's true wolf, chained to a stone altar in darkness, did not command her to break. It waited for her to decide whether she would become a door. Severine saw the change. "No," she whispered, then louder. Do not let her think. Strike the wrist. Temple guards surged forward with moon-salt blades. Caedran released one arm from Lysara just long enough to draw his sword. The movement should have pulled her into the mirror, but she planted her marked hand against his forearm. Silver-black fire flashed between them. The gate held. Caedran cut the first spear in half. The second guard reached for Lysara's wrist and screamed when the mark flared, not burning him, but showing him something. He fell backward, sobbing into the sand. "What did he see?" Lysara gasped. Severine's face hardened. What gates show all cowards? Consequence. Another priestess approached from the eastern dais, carrying the black moonstone pendant Severine had worn at her throat. Up close, Lysara saw it was not jewelry. It was a shard of the same mirror, polished smooth, dark as an eye with no mercy. Severine took it and pressed it to her bleeding palm. "If the Noct gate will not obey," she said, "then we use the king's blood to force it." Caedran moved, but too late. The pendant drank the blood Severine had spilled earlier onto the mirror's frame and answered with a red-black pulse. The chains inside the corridor tightened around Caedran's wolf. The beast roared. Caedran dropped to both knees behind Lysara. This time she felt the pain before he made a sound. It tore through her back, her ribs, her throat. The gate inside her body tried to open wide enough to stop it, wide enough to let the wolf through, wide enough to let everything behind it follow. White eyes gleamed in the far dark. The thing beyond the wolf whispered without sound. "Open." Lysara shook her head, tears burning hot down her face. "I can't hold both." Caedran's voice was strained, barely human. "Then hold yourself. No one ever taught me how." His hand found hers in the sand. Bloody, scarred, trembling. "Start now." The words entered her like a blade turned sideways, still painful, but no longer meant to kill. Lysara closed her fingers around his. The arena vanished. She stood inside herself. Not in darkness, not in emptiness. A long passage stretched through her soul, lined with black stone and silver fire. Countless sealed doors trembled along both sides, but one stood directly before her. A door marked with Caedran's blood, his pain, his wolf's golden eyes. Behind it, the royal beast waited. Behind the beast, the white-eyed thing pressed its face near the threshold. Lysara understood then. She was not meant to open every door. She was meant to choose which ones remained closed. She placed her palm against Caedran's door. "Only him," she whispered. The mark on her wrist blazed. In the arena, silver-black fire shot upward around her and Caedran, forming a towering arch of living flame. The broken mirror screamed. Severine staggered back, her pendant cracking down the center. Inside the corridor, Caedran's true wolf tore one chain from its throat. The arena fell silent as a massive golden eye opened through Lysara's shadow. Then the wolf spoke through her mouth. "Who gave the priestess my name?" The voice that left Lysara's throat was not hers, but the pain afterward belonged to her body. She collapsed forward, one hand buried in the blackened sand, silver-black fire trembling along her spine. Caedran caught her before her forehead struck the ground. The arena watched the Alpha King kneel behind the wolfless Omega he had been commanded to fear, one arm around her waist, his sword angled outward against temple guards, his face carved with fury and something far more dangerous. Recognition. Inside Lysara's shadow, a massive golden eye remained open. The king's true wolf had asked a question no one wanted answered. Severine stood before the broken mirror with the cracked pendant clenched in her bleeding hand. For the first time since Lysara had known her, the priestess did not look like moonlit law. She looked like a woman whose locked room had begun speaking through the wall. Caedran's voice came low. "Answer it." Severine lifted her chin. "A beast's accusation is not testimony. My wolf does not ask what it already knows." The golden eye in Lysara's shadow narrowed. A tremor passed through the black stone mirror. Behind its shattered surface, The royal wolf strained against the remaining chains. One chain still held fast around its throat, thicker than the others, glowing with script so pale it seemed carved from dead moonlight. Lysara saw the marks and understood without knowing how. A name. Not Caedran. Noct Vhal. A wolf's first name. The one given in darkness when a royal beast opened its eyes for the first time. The name no court spoke aloud. The name a wolf would answer even when blood, crown, and command failed. Severin had chained him with his own becoming. Caedran saw it in Lysara's face. "What?" She swallowed through the burn in her throat. "The last chain is made from a name." The crowd stirred. Old alphas muttered prayers. Younger wolves looked confused, but the elders understood. True wolf names were not common knowledge. They were whispered by mothers, guarded by mates, buried with kings. To bind one was not priestcraft. It was violation. Caedran turned back to Severine. "Who gave you mine?" The priestess's silence condemned her more deeply than confession. Then a voice rose from the royal tier. "I did." The arena shifted toward the sound. A woman stood beneath the black awning, reserved for blood-right nobles. She was tall, dressed in mourning blue, with silver at her temples, and a face Lysara recognized from old palace coins. Queen Mother, Vhal of Fal, Caedran's mother. Caedran went utterly still. The pain that crossed his face did not belong in public. It was too young, too private, too close to a boy who had once trusted the hand that held his first shift. Vhal descended one step. "I gave it to the temple to save you." Severine closed her eyes briefly, as if the admission had come too soon. Caedran's hand tightened around Lysara's waist, but not enough to hurt. "You watched them chain him. I watched him tear through 6 men after the blood moon wound." Vela's voice shook once, then hardened. "You were dying. Your wolf was rabid with breach fire. Severin said the temple could contain him until you healed. 3 years, Caedran said. Vela's mouth trembled. Every time we tried to loosen the binding, something answered behind him. The white eyes in the distant corridor opened wider. A cold smile formed in the dark beyond the wolf. The arena felt it. Even those who could not see the corridor stepped back. Severine seized the fear at once. There is the truth. The royal wolf is not the only thing behind the gate. If the Noct girl opens him fully, she opens the breach with him. Lysara's stomach twisted. Because Severine was not entirely lying, that made the trap stronger. The king's wolf was imprisoned. Something worse waited behind him. Lysara could free one and doom many if she opened carelessly. All her life, she had been called empty. Now the whole kingdom stared as if she were too full of catastrophe to live. A temple guard lifted his blade again. Caedran's sword flashed to his throat. Move and lose the hand. The guard froze. Severine's gaze sharpened. Majesty, if you protect her now, every death that follows will sit beside your throne. Caedran looked down at Lysara. She wished he had not. It was easier to be brave when no one saw how badly fear had hollowed her. The fire on her skin dimmed. The gate mark on her wrist pulsed open and closed, struggling between the wolf before her and the horror behind it. You should step away, she whispered. His face changed. Anger first, then something quieter. No, I may open the wrong door. Then we learn how you choose. What if I fail? His voice lowered so only she could hear. Then I fail beside you. The word struck deeper than protection. Protection could still be ownership. This was worse. This was trust offered before proof. Severine saw the moment land. She raised the cracked pendant and shouted to the tears. Witness the binding. The wolf gate has taken the king's judgment. By moon law, he is compromised. The priestesses around the arena answered with a single chant. Black rings ignited beneath Caedran's knees. Lysara felt the ritual shift. Not toward her this time. Toward him. They are separating you from your blood, she gasped. Caedran tried to stand. but the rings tightened. His sword dropped point first into the sand. The remaining chain in the mirror flared around the wolf's throat, and Caedran's body bowed under the same pressure. Severin's voice rang over the arena. If the king will not command the gate sealed, then the temple will remove the king from command. The royal tears erupted. Some alphas shouted treason. Others stayed silent, afraid the priestess might be right. Vhal covered her mouth with both hands, horror finally breaking through the queenly mask. Lysara looked at Caedran. He was on one knee again, not from weakness, but from a curse wearing the language of law, the same way she had been brought here, the same way the mourning cloth had called her dead before she bled. Something inside Lysara went still. Not calm, clear. She pressed her marked wrist against the black ring binding Caedran. Silver-black fire spread from her skin into the temple runes. Severine's eyes widened. Do not. Lysara lifted her head. For the first time, her voice carried without the wolf speaking for her. You used law like a collar. The ring cracked beneath her hand. Now let it feel teeth. Caedran's true wolf roared through the broken mirror, and the last chain around its throat began to split. The royal tears stopped shouting when the moon gate began to bleed light. Silver-black fire ran through the cracks in the stone ring, not falling to the sand, but climbing upward like veins waking beneath dead skin. The broken mirror groaned beside it. Inside the corridor of black moonlight, the royal wolf threw its full weight against the final binding, and the sound shook every banner in the crown arena. Lysara kept her marked wrist pressed to the ring around Caedran's knees. The temple runes split wider beneath her palm. Pain answered. Not only hers, his, the wolf's. The old wound threaded through all three of them, until she could no longer tell where her fear ended and the king's began. Caedran's breath came harsh behind her. His hand braced in the sand. His face lowered as if the curse had hooked both his spine and his pride. Severine strode toward them with the cracked pendant blazing in her fist. Hold the line. The priestesses obeyed, but their chant trembled now. Every word they spoke was swallowed by the growl rising from the mirror. Temple guards formed a half circle around Lysara and Caedran, yet none dared come close enough to strike. The last man who had touched her mark was still sobbing near the wall, clutching his own face as if consequence had shown him something he could not forget. Queen Mother Vhal stood frozen on the royal steps. Her eyes were on her son, not on the king, on the boy whose wolf name she had surrendered. Lysara saw the grief there and hated it, because grief did not undo betrayal. It only made betrayal look human. The black ring binding Caedran snapped. He inhaled sharply, but he did not rise. His gaze fixed on Lysara's wrist, on the crescent gate burning open around the wolf's eye. You can stop, he said. His voice was rough enough to scrape. Lysara looked at him. Can you? He did not answer. That was answer enough. The final chain inside the mirror split halfway. The royal wolf roared, and Lysara's shadow shot upward behind her, taller than the moon gate, broader than the arena arch. It was no longer only a passage. It had become the shape of a wolf's body, made from her darkness and his fire, silver black along the spine, gold burning in the eyes. The crowd sank back in terror. Severine's face sharpened with triumph disguised as warning. Look at her. The gate is taking form. If she opens fully, nothing will remain of the girl. For a heartbeat, Lysara believed her. She felt the wolf pressing through her bones. She felt claws where fingers should have been, a muzzle where breath should pass, a hunger for sky after years inside stone. Her human body shook under the force. She was too small, too breakable, too untrained for a bloodline no one had allowed her to understand. Then Caedran reached for her hand. Not to pull, not to command. He placed his bloodied palm beneath hers against the sand, steadying without taking. Lysara Noct, he said, low enough that only she heard. You are not the door they made you fear. Her throat tightened. What am I? His gold eyes lifted to hers, the one who decides whether it opens. The word settled inside her more deeply than the wolf fire. Lysara turned back to the mirror. The white-eyed thing waited behind Caedran's true wolf, patient as a grave. Its long mouth curved as if it already knew the shape of her panic. Behind it, other sealed doors knocked from beneath the kingdom, eager for one mistake. She lifted her marked wrist. "Only him," she whispered again. The gate mark flared. The final chain broke. Caedran's true wolf surged forward, but Lysara did not open wide. She narrowed herself around the beast's name, around his gold eyes, around the pain that belonged to him, and not to the thing behind him. The white-eyed creature lunged after it. Lysara shut the passage in its face. The impact threw every wolf in the arena to one knee. Severin screamed. The mirror exploded outward in shards of black moonstone. None touched Lysara. They circled her like broken stars, then burned to ash before reaching her skin. Through her shadow, Caedran's wolf emerged. Not into flesh at first, into fire. A colossal beast of gold and black flame rose through Lysara's back, its paws touching the sand on either side of her body, its head lifting above the moon gate. Its breath rolled over the arena with the scent of storm pine, blood-warmed steel, and a wilderness no temple had ever owned. Caedran bowed under the force behind her. One knee in the sand. Head lowered. Not defeated. Rejoined. The arena saw the impossible tableau all at once. The frail, wolfless Omega burning with silver-black wolf fire, the Alpha King kneeling behind her, and his true royal wolf rising through her shadow like a crown the temple had failed to bury. No one laughed. No one called her hollow. Severin staggered back, clutching the broken pendant. No. She should have opened the breach. The words left her mouth before she could cage them. The nearest alphas heard. So did Caedran. Slowly he lifted his head. Lysara turned toward the priestess, the royal wolf towering through her shadow. "You wanted the breach open." Severin's face went white. Queen Mother Vhal whispered, "What have you done?" The wide-eyed thing slammed against the sealed passage behind Lysara's ribs. She doubled over, nearly falling. Caedran caught her from behind, and this time, the royal wolf did not punish his touch. It curled around them both, gold fire and black shadow shielding her body from the unseen blow. Severin raised both bleeding hands. Across the arena, every black bell in every priestess's braid rang at once. Beneath the royal dais, a hidden second mirror woke. Its surface opened like an eye, and from inside it the white-eyed thing smiled directly at the Queen Mother. The royal dais cracked beneath Queen Mother Vhal's feet. Black moonlight poured through the hidden seam, climbing the carved steps like water rising from a drowned grave. Wolves scattered from the royal tier. Nobles who had spent their lives bowing to blood now shoved one another aside to escape it. Vhal stood frozen at the center, one hand pressed to her throat, her face stripped of crown pride as the second mirror opened beneath her shadow. Caedran's wolf snarled through Lysara's shadow. The sound hit the arena like a war horn. The white-eyed thing inside the second mirror pressed closer, long fingers spreading against the glass from within. It did not look at Lysara first. It looked at Vhal, and its smile widened with a terrible familiarity. "Mother," Caedran said. Vhal turned toward him, horror breaking through her composure. "I did not know." Severin laughed then, not loudly, not wildly, softly, as if the final prayer had been answered exactly as she expected. "No," the priestess said. "You only gave me his wolf name. You only begged me to save your son. You only signed the temple rite in royal blood. Innocence is such a beautiful cloak when one never asks what it covers." Caedran tried to rise, but Lysara felt his true wolf still half-rooted through her gate. If he moved too far from her, the passage would tear. If she opened too wide, the thing beneath the dais would come through. Every choice had teeth. The second mirror pulsed. Vhal cried out as black runes circled her wrists and throat. The temple had not merely used her confession years ago. It had kept part of her oath as a key. Lysara understood with cold clarity. Severin had never meant only to hold Caedran's wolf. She had waited for a wolf gate strong enough to open the royal prison, then planned to let the older horror slip through the Queen Mother's bloodline and claim the throne from within. You wanted the breach to wear her, Lysara said. The arena heard. Severin's eyes turned silver-white at the edges. I wanted a kingdom that could not be ruled by unstable beasts and grieving kings. The temple would have held the thing, guided it, used it to end pack wars forever. Caedran's voice was lethal. You call that guidance? I call it order. The white-eyed creature struck the mirror. A crack split the air, not the glass. The air. Cold poured through, carrying the smell of old hunger and moonless forests. Wolves in the lower tiers dropped to their knees, choking. Some shifted unwillingly, bones cracking under panic. The creature's influence crawled through every weak fear in the arena, feeding on guilt, ambition, old rage. Lysara felt it reach for her too. Empty girl, hollow girl, open and beloved. For a moment, the words found old wounds. The child who had watched others shift, while she stood unchanged. The girl who had been marked dead before the moon ever judged her. The Omega who had believed any purpose, even a dangerous one, might be better than being nothing. Caedran's hand closed over hers. Lysara. Only her name. Not gate. Not vessel. Not salvation. Her name. She came back to herself. The royal wolf pressed against her shadow, not forcing, waiting as before. Lysara drew one breath, then another. Her body trembled, but the passage inside her steadied. I am not empty, she whispered. The gate mark on her wrist blazed. Severin saw what she meant to do and lunged toward the second mirror. Caedran moved first. His true wolf erupted from Lysara's shadow far enough to strike. A massive forepaw of gold-black fire slamming into the sand between Severin and the dais. The priestess flew backward, but the blow tore through Lysara's spine. She screamed and nearly collapsed. Caedran caught her, face white with terror. Enough. Close it. If I close it now, your mother dies with the mirror. Vhal looked at her from the royal dais, black runes tightening around her throat. Child, do not save me if it frees that thing. The words were brave. Too late, but brave. Lysara looked at the woman who had given away her son's true name out of fear, at the king whose wolf still chose restraint over escape, at the crowd that had come to watch her, erased, and now waited for her to decide whether their world survived. She lifted her marked hand. Caedran, she said, voice shaking. I need your wolf to trust me. His eyes locked on hers. It already does. No, fully. Understanding passed across his face. Fear followed it. If the wolf gave itself fully into her gate, she could seal the breach or lose herself to both beasts forever. Caedran did not look away. Then take him. The royal wolf bowed its great head behind her. Lysara opened only one path. The wolf entered. Her body arched under the force, silver-black fire and gold flame twisting through her veins. But this time she did not become a door for everything. She became a blade-thin passage, narrow, chosen, edged with will. The white-eyed thing surged from the second mirror. Lysara met it halfway, not with strength, with refusal. She drove Caedran's true wolf fire through the breach and wrapped her Noct gate around the creature's throat. Not to free it, not to kill what could not be killed, but to name the boundary it had crossed. Not yours, she said. The arena vanished in white fire. When sight returned, the second mirror was gone. The black runes around Vhal shattered into dust. The wide-eyed creature screamed from somewhere far beneath the kingdom as every sealed door slammed shut at once. Severin lay in the sand beside the broken moon gate, her bells silent at last. Caedran's true wolf withdrew from Lysara slowly, leaving her shaking, alive, and still herself. For 3 heartbeats no one moved. Then Alpha King Caedran Vhal shifted. Not through Lysara, not through a mirror, through his own blood. A colossal black and gold wolf stood behind her in the frost-white sand, scarred, furious, whole. The arena fell to its knees, and Severine, bleeding at the mouth, began to smile. Severine's smile was small enough to hide inside blood. That was why Lysara feared it. The whole crown arena knelt before the wolf they had been told would destroy them. Caedran's true beast stood in the frost-white sand, enormous and black gold, scars burning through its fur like old lightning. Its eyes were Caedran's eyes, no longer trapped behind glass, no longer pleading through another body. One breath from the royal wolf sent every banner snapping backward, as if the wind itself had remembered its king. Lysara stood before it, shaking so badly she could barely feel her feet. She had opened the passage. She had closed the breach. She had survived both. Yet Severine, bleeding at the mouth beside the broken moongate, looked pleased. Caedran shifted back to human in a rush of black gold fire. He staggered, armor torn, chest marked by burns where the temple chains had once held him, but his eyes were clear. He walked to Lysara and stood beside her. Not in front, beside. Severin laughed softly. There it is. The proof. Queen Mother Vela gripped the cracked railing of the royal dais. What proof? The king's wolf returned through forbidden gate. Blood, Severine said, her voice carrying with cruel precision. Every alpha here witnessed it. Kill the gate, and the wolf remains free. Spare her, and every sealed beast beneath our lands may one day wear your children's shadows. Fear stirred through the kneeling packs. Lysara felt it gathering again, looking for the easiest throat to close around. If Caedran needed her to reach his wolf, she was dangerous. If she could choose which door opened, she was more dangerous. The arena had stopped calling her hollow, but fear had only changed its shape. Caedran's voice cut through the murmurs. No one will touch her. Severine's eyes brightened. Then you choose her over the kingdom. The old trap opened at his feet. Woman or crown, truth or safety, mercy or rule. The arena leaned toward it, hungry for the simplicity of sacrifice. Before Caedran could answer, Lysara touched his arm. No, she said. He looked at her. She faced the packs. Her voice shook at first, but the broken moongate carried every word. I am not a weapon for the king. I am not a door for the temple. I am not the breach. She lifted her left wrist, where the crescent gate around the wolf's eye glowed beneath silver ash. I am the bloodline you buried, because it could choose what opened and what stayed sealed. Severine pushed herself to one knee. Choice is the lie gates tell before ruin enters. No, Lysara said. Choice is what you stole. The arena stilled. Lysara pointed toward the shattered mirror. You stole his wolf and called it protection. You used his mother's fear and called it duty. You marked me dead before my blood touched the moongate and called it law. You did not guard this kingdom from monsters, priestess. You taught it to obey one. No magic carried the words, only truth. Queen Mother Vela descended from the royal dais. Her steps were unsteady, her face stripped of pride. When she reached Caedran, she did not touch him. She lowered herself to her knees before her son and before Lysara. I gave his wolf name to the temple, Vela said, voice breaking across the arena. I did it from fear. I will not call fear wisdom anymore. Caedran's face tightened, but he did not turn away. That mercy cost him more than rage would have. Severine spat blood into the sand. Confession does not close the breach. No, Lysara said. But I can. Caedran turned sharply. Lysara. She heard the warning in his voice. She had barely survived once. Closing what remained beneath the arena might take more than strength. It might take years from her body, blood from her spirit, or the life she had only just claimed as her own. But she was tired of being treated as something that only mattered when others decided how much of her could be spent. "I am not giving myself to it," she said quietly. "I am giving it a boundary." She stepped toward the broken moon gate. Caedran followed. His black-gold wolf shadow rose behind him, whole and silent. It did not try to pass through her now. It stood guard. Lysara placed her marked hand on the cracked stone. Beneath the arena, the sealed doors stirred. The white-eyed thing scraped once, far below, furious and hungry. Other old prisons whispered against her skin. Open. Rule. Be needed. Lysara closed her eyes. For 20 years, she had believed emptiness was the worst thing she could be. Now she knew emptiness had never been her wound. Her wound was everyone else deciding what her silence meant. "I am Lysara Noct," she whispered. "I open only by my will." The mark on her wrist blazed silver black. Across the arena, hidden corpse marks flared on wrists, buried beneath sleeves, gloves, scars, and shame. Servants, omegas, forgotten wards, failed shifters, children once named dead to law because their blood frightened priests. Gasps broke through the tears as people saw how many lives the temple had erased without graves. Lysara pressed harder against the stone. "And I close what was opened by lies." The moon gate cracked from base to crown, not destroyed, changed. The black stone turned silver at its edges, then deepened to midnight blue. The old claw runes rearranged into a crescent arch around a wolf's eye, matching the mark on Lysara's wrist. Beneath the kingdom, the sealed doors slammed shut not from fear, but from command recognized. Severine screamed. The black bells in her braids shattered one by one. The moonstone pendant at her throat split open, revealing not holy crystal, but a tiny shard of living breach dark. Caedran's wolf shadow snarled. The shard tore free of Severine's skin and tried to flee toward the gate. Lysara closed her fist. "No more doors for you." Silver-black fire folded around the shard. The breach dark vanished, with a sound like a lock turning. Severine collapsed into the sand, suddenly old in a way no face should become all at once. Without borrowed moon power, without hidden mirrors, without fear dressed as law, she looked only human. Caedran's guards seized her. No one tried to stop them. The arena remained kneeling, but the silence had changed. It was no longer the silence of terror. It was the silence after a lie breaks, and every living soul must decide what to do with the pieces. Caedran faced the packs. "By witness of every pack gathered here," he said, "the temple's right to mark blood, dead, is broken. Every corpse record will be opened. Every omega, ward, failed shifter, and forgotten child named dead by false moon law will be restored to living protection." A sound moved through the tears. Not cheering. Not yet. Something more fragile. Disbelief learning how to stand. He turned to the royal guard. "Take Severine to the lower cells, not the temple cells. Mine." Severine lifted her hollow face. "Without the temple, you will beg for order." "No," Caedran said. "Without fear, we may finally learn it." The guards dragged her from the sand. No bell rang as she passed. Vhal remained on her knees. Caedran looked at his mother for a long moment, and Lysara felt the silence between them. The true name given away, the son imprisoned for protection, the love that had become a chain because fear had taught it how. At last, Caedran spoke. "You will testify." Vhal bowed her head. "Yes. You will name every noble who signed the temple right." "Yes." His jaw tightened. "And you will never again speak for my wolf." The Queen Mother closed her eyes, as if the sentence had struck deeper than exile. "I understand." Caedran turned away from her. That, too, was mercy. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the refusal to let pain rule the next command. Then his gaze found Lysara. The arena seemed to fall farther away. She stood beside the changed moon gate, with ash on her wrist, blood on her palm, and a body that had nearly become a battlefield for every buried monster beneath the kingdom. She had no wolf of her own standing behind her, no noble house shouting her name, no crown, no pack rushing to claim what they had once discarded, yet no one dared call her hollow now. Caedran walked toward her slowly, as if approaching a wound with permission. His black gold wolf shadow followed at his back, whole and silent, its great head lowered in recognition. He stopped before Lysara. For one heartbeat, she expected a royal command. Instead, the Alpha King lowered himself to one knee in the frost-white sand. A gasp swept through the arena. Lysara froze. Caedran looked up at her, scarred, exhausted, and utterly unhidden. "Lysara Noct," he said. "Wolf, gate of the living moon, keeper of the threshold, the woman my court tried to erase before her blood could speak. I owe you my wolf. I owe you the truth, but I will not claim you as debt." Her throat tightened, his voice lowered, but the arena still heard. "If you remain in this kingdom, it will be because you choose it. If you leave under my protection. If you stay beside me, it will not be as a vessel, weapon, or proof of my reign." The black gold wolf behind him bowed its massive head. Caedran extended his hand, palm open. "It will be because you wish to stand there." Lysara looked at the hand. Once, she had reached for him in panic and released a wolf through her own body. Now he reached for her with nothing forcing the moment, except choice. She placed her hand in his, not because the arena watched, not because the moon gate glowed behind her, because he had asked, not taken. "Then stand," she said. Caedran rose with her hand in his. The first howl came from the lowest tier. An old Omega woman, with a glowing corpse mark on her wrist, lifted her face to the sky and howled with a cracked, shaking voice. Another answered, then another. Failed shifters, forgotten wards, wolves, who had hidden dead names under living skin. Their howls rose unevenly, broken and beautiful, until the crown arena shook with a sound no temple could command. Lysara felt tears burn her eyes. Caedran did not look away from her. Above them, the moon gate opened not into darkness, not into prison, not into the breach beneath the world. It opened to silver night, clean and endless, where the moon shone through without chains. For the first time in her life, Lysara Noct felt no emptiness inside her, only a door, closed by her will, opened by her choice. And beside it, a king and his wolf stood guard.